You pull your chair in at 9:47 a.m. for a meeting that could have been an email. You know it. The person who called it knows it. The person who called it also knows you checked your inbox 3 times on the walk over. They do not care. The agenda is a single bullet point from an email chain you already replied to yesterday. But you will sit here for 47 minutes while Kevin from accounting repeats the same question he asked in the thread. Here is the strange part. You will not say the sentence out loud. You will think it. You will feel it in your jaw. You will type it to a colleague under the table, but you will never speak the words that everyone in the room is thinking. This meeting could have been an email. You are not lazy for thinking this. You are not impatient. You are not failing to understand the value of face-to-face collaboration. You are registering a temporal violation. Your brain is detecting that something is consuming a resource it cannot replenish, and it is signaling distress in the only way evolution gave it. Time is disappearing in front of you, and you are watching it vanish with your eyes open. Now your brain has just handed you the evidence for something you felt but could not name. That gap between the feeling and the language is exactly where this channel lives. If your first reaction to that meeting was recognition, not surprise, but recognition, then subscribe. This is the vocabulary you have been reaching for, and there is more of it coming. Drop a comment with the word temporal. Tell me the moment you realized you were watching time vanish, not just losing it. The phrase itself became a workplace meme in 2009. Harvard Business Review ran a post called "The Meeting Email Paradox" in June of that year. It quoted a senior manager at a Fortune 500 firm who finally said what everyone else was thinking. The internet grabbed it. Reddit turned it into a rallying cry in 2014 when a thread on R project management exploded with 12,000 upvotes. But the phrase is not a joke. It is a diagnostic tool. It is the symptom of a deeper structural failure that organizational psychologists have been tracking for a decade. By 2019, workers in the United States were spending an average of 31 hours per month in meetings. Doodle surveyed 1,200 professionals across 30 countries and found that U.S. firms were burning an estimated $37 billion annually in lost productivity. $37 billion, not on salaries, not on software, not on office space, on the gap between what a meeting produces and what an email could have produced for free. You have seen the first layer of the trap. But most people stop here and think they have understood the whole thing. They have not. Stay with me, because the next piece of evidence is the one your boss never wants you to hear. The official story is that meetings build alignment. They create serendipity. They forge the social glue that keeps teams functional. This is what you are told. This is what the person who called the 9:47 a.m. meeting believes. But the data does not support it. Kaufeld and Lehman-Willenbrock published a study in 2012 in Group Dynamics. They analyzed 184 teams and found that once a meeting exceeded 45 minutes, satisfaction dropped by 23% and perceived productivity fell by a measurable margin. The optimal meeting length, according to their data, was under 30 minutes. Most corporate meetings run longer than 45 minutes. Most corporate meetings could have been emails. In 2020, a team led by Kelly, Bianchi, and Patel published cortisol measurements from 45 participants across high-stakes meetings. Salivary cortisol rose 15% on average during the meeting compared to baseline. The stress spike was significant. It was also predictable, but here is what nobody talks about. The researchers found that when the agenda was distributed by email in advance, the cortisol rise was cut by more than half. The meeting itself became less stressful because the information transfer had already happened. The meeting was no longer doing the work. It was only confirming what everyone already knew. That is the first crack in the official story. If the meeting is for information transfer, it should never have been a meeting. It should have been an email. McKinsey & Company tracked this in 2021. They surveyed executives across multiple industries after the pandemic shift to remote work. 71% said the forced transition made them reevaluate meeting frequency. 48% cut redundant meetings entirely after conducting a post-pandemic audit. They found that the meetings they eliminated were almost always status update meetings, the kind where people take turns reading slides that are already in your inbox, the kind where Kevin asks the question he already asked. This is where the data stops being abstract and starts naming your exact 3 p.m. experience. Your cortisol did not spike because you were stressed. It spiked because your brain treated every passing minute as a violation of a temporal contract. You agreed to give 47 minutes of your life to something that should have taken 3. Your brain is not stupid. It knows when it is being stolen from. Rogelberg, Leach, and War published a 2014 study in the Journal of Applied Psychology. They surveyed 322 workers and found that people who attended 5 or more email replaceable meetings per week showed a 12% increase in intention to quit. Not dissatisfaction, intention to quit. They were already planning their exit. Meetings are not just inefficient, they are retention killers. They signal to your brain that the organization does not respect your time. And your brain, being a rational actor, begins searching for an organization that does. The hidden truth is that meetings serve a purpose that has nothing to do with information transfer. They serve as synchronization rituals. They are social verification events where managers confirm that their teams are aligned, visible, and accountable. But alignment does not require presence. Accountability does not require real-time conversation. Visibility does not require you to watch Kevin search for the mute button for 30 seconds. Zhou, Li, and Wang ran a randomized field experiment in 2023. They took 1,100 workers and replaced their status update meetings with asynchronous email summaries. The result was a 21% reduction in perceived time waste and a 12% increase in task completion speed. The work did not suffer. Communication did not break down. The social fabric did not tear apart. What improved was every metric of efficiency and satisfaction. Write this in your mind. What part of this did you already know but never said out loud? Because the strange part is not that workers lose focus. The strange part is that organizational psychologists have been measuring this for decades while companies continue building the same meeting schedules. The theory of disappearing time was formally named by organizational psychologist Dr. Lena Shu in 2020. Her monograph Temporal Perception in Collaborative Work, published through Cambridge University Press, lays out the mechanism. Each unnecessary meeting creates what she calls a temporal black hole. It erodes your perceived agency over your own schedule. It damages your future time perspective. You stop believing you have control over your day, and that belief shift has measurable consequences. Van der Meiden and van der Heijden confirmed this in 2021. They studied 147 workers using the Zimbardo Time Perspective Inventory. Workers with 3 or more meetings per day showed a measurable decline in their ability to think about the future. They became trapped in the present. They stopped planning, stopped prioritizing, stopped imagining what their work could become. This is not about being busy. This is about having your cognitive future stolen from you one status update at a time. The core truth is that meetings are not about efficiency. They are about control. When a manager schedules a meeting that could have been an email, they are not solving a coordination problem. They are asserting a power relationship. They are saying, I have the right to take your time without justification. Shopify understood this. In 2022, their engineering team launched an internal meeting cost estimator. The tool multiplies attendee count by hourly wage by meeting length. Early adopters saved an average of $1.2 million per year after eliminating meetings that could have been emails. $1.2 million from a single organizational behavior change. Not a new product launch, not a market expansion. Just stopping the meetings that never needed to happen. But here is the part that changes everything. The cost estimator is not just a financial tool. It is a cognitive tool. It externalizes a calculation that your brain was already making. You knew that meeting was expensive. You felt it. What you lacked was the vocabulary to articulate it and the data to prove it. That is the role of the theory of disappearing time. It gives you language for the theft you have been experiencing. Miller and Grant published a meta-analysis in 2022 in the Academy of Management Proceedings. They analyzed 27 studies with a total sample of over 12,000 workers. The finding was clear. Eliminating 1 hour of redundant meetings per week yields an average 3.8% increase in weekly output across knowledge work industries. 3.8% may not sound dramatic, but multiply that across 1,000 employees over a year. You are looking at thousands of hours returned to productive work. Work that is not interrupted. Work that does not require context switching. Work that does not force your brain to rebuild its attentional state after Kevin asks his question. The final piece of evidence comes from neuroscience. Carter and Shu published an fMRI study in 2019 in Social Cognitive and Affective Neuroscience. They scanned 30 participants during both group decision-making meetings and solitary email composition. The result was stark. Group meetings produced 35% greater activation in the medial prefrontal cortex. That is the region responsible for social cognition, perspective taking, and anticipating how others will react. It is a high-demand cognitive load. It is not efficient information transfer. Your brain is working harder in a meeting than it would working through the same information alone. It is processing content, social cues, hierarchy dynamics, and personal impression management all at once. That is why you are exhausted after a meeting that accomplished nothing. Your brain treated it as a high-stakes social performance. The content was secondary. The full picture is now visible. The meeting that could have been an email is not a minor inefficiency. It is a systemic extraction of attention, agency, and future time perspective. You are not lazy for resenting it. You are not failing to see the value of collaboration. You are a worker in a system that extracts your time for the purpose of managerial reassurance, and your brain is correctly identifying the problem. You just sat through the autopsy of a system engineered to fracture your attention. Now ask yourself what part of that algorithm you are still running. This is just the surface. What comes next changes everything. The data has finished its testimony. You now carry the full weight of the evidence. Subscribe to stay inside the investigation. There is a next chapter in this case, and it runs deeper than meetings. Then drop the word cortex in the comments. Tell me one meeting that left you too exhausted to work afterward, not because of the content, but because of the performance. The theory of disappearing time does not end with meetings. It extends to every structure that pulls you out of deep work without justification, the notification that interrupts your flow state, the standing meeting that survives beyond its usefulness, the culture that rewards presence over output. In the next chapter, we examine what happens when your territorial cortex is activated every 6 minutes, and why open offices were never about collaboration. They were about visibility. And visibility is control. You already knew the meeting could have been an email. Now you know why. The question is what you do with the remaining hours of your day. They are yours. Take them back.